Consistent lead generation for your ActionCOACH franchise. The holy grail of building a business or building an ActionCOACH coaching business. It's all about building systems that create the conversions, the clients, and the freedom. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this particular video. My name is Tanner OBrien. I'm a senior partner here at ActionCOACH in Central Texas. We've been building our business for the past 14 years. I've been a part of growing the business for the past 5, and I'm super excited to share some of the lessons and the learnings when it comes to creating consistent lead generation. So that's what this video is going to be about. That's what we're going to be walking through as we go through things here today. So one of the first things that is helpful in this process of learning how do we create consistent lead generation is asking ourselves a few questions. And the first question I want to really get you all to think about here today is, what are your challenges with marketing? And you can write down anything that you feel is a challenge for you in marketing today. So these things could be, I don't get enough leads, to the leads that I do get, they're just not qualified, or I can't get a hold of them, or maybe it's a little bit further downstream. Maybe I'm getting plenty of leads and I think they're qualified, but I just can't figure out how to convert them effectively. They're just not ready to make that purchase decision downstream as I get them further down the sales funnel. Whatever it is for you, I want you to start writing these things down. The greater the clarity on it, the better we'll be able to shift into focusing on which parts of today's conversations are most relevant to what you're seeing in your business, your action franchise. So write down your challenges with marketing. If we were sitting here doing this live together, I would be writing this up on the board for us to really take a look at. So most common things that we see when it comes to challenges with marketing are number of leads, consistently getting those leads, and or getting enough qualified people on the calendar, because we just simply run out of time if we're sitting down having conversations with people who are never going to buy from us. These tend to be the most common things that we see and running out of bandwidth. So with those kind of pieces or frames in mind, we're going to go in and start looking at a couple different components when it comes to how we consistently generate leads for our business. So the second question I have for you today, and I'm going to challenge you on this one, is, do you give enough value away for free? When it comes to coaching services, when it comes to things like our action business and the services that we provide, the reality for most of us out there is that the leads that we're going after have no idea who we are. They might be problem aware, saying that there's something in their business that they want solved, but vast majority of them don't know that they necessarily have a problem, don't realize that we're the type of individuals or the type of business that can support and serve them in this area. And because of that, when they're coming into our funnel, when they're coming into having a conversation with us for the first time, there's a lot of rapport building that's needed. And rapport building today in the business world isn't just about building a relationship where I think I like you and things like that. We have to showcase more value than ever before. So my question, my challenge is, do you give enough value away for free? Now, I'm not saying give away everything within your business. Don't give away all the coaching tips and techniques and systems and things like that. But it is important to think about what is something that's actually of value for the people that are sitting across from me, and how do I give them pieces of it so that they truly feel and can experience what it's like to gain value from me. Once they've felt this, the conversion downstream is so much easier, because once you've solved a problem for them, think of it as a micro problem. Once you've solved a problem for them, the likelihood of them believing that you can help them solve the remaining problems that they now also see that they have is much greater. So that's ultimately what we're looking to accomplish as we go through these types of things. So here in Central Texas, we have fully gone down the path of using the Business Spotlight series, which is essentially just a podcast series as a front-end free offer that can build trust and gives value. So when we say this gives value, there's a few things we think about. The first thing is, it's not just value because they get to be on a podcast. Yes, that is inherently valuable, and we're going to push this stuff out. And we're going to try and give them the exposure to our networks and things like that. But it's not just that. The value is also, hey, these are small businesses in our local community. They likely haven't been on a whole bunch of podcasts or doing video content or anything like that out there in the past. So this gives them an opportunity to get better at it. So we're giving them value in that way, shape, or form. The other thing that we do is we give this content away for free. So if you're watching this later and you're like, Tanner, I've been on other podcasts and things like that in the past, like I have, you'll recognize that the vast majority of other podcasts out there that you could go sit on today, more often than not, they don't give you the content. So you don't get the clips, you don't get the full version, you don't get the audio, you don't get the things that then you can take and use in your own business. You're really relying on their distribution channels and your ability to reshare it. The Spotlight series has worked very well because we give them that value. We give them a file folder that says, here's your video, here's the shorts, here's a couple snippets, here's things that you can take directly from this podcast interview, regardless of anything else that you do. It's a way to give value for free that costs us nothing and builds additional credibility and rapport. So when we think about different ways that people enter a funnel, and we think about different ways that we can provide value to our prospects and our network, the Spotlight series is a fantastic front-end offer that builds this from people who have never heard of us before, ever. So let's take a step back and talk about the marketing graveyard. What are some things that we have tried, some things that I have tried that failed? So things like paid ads, networking to a degree. There's a caveat on that one. Flyers, cold calls. We have tried all of these things, and I would say that none of them really worked. And they failed not because the ideas or the concept or anything else was bad. They failed because, frankly, myself and the team did not apply them properly. So when we would do paid ads, we would assume that we could get them into a workshop or a webinar or something else like that, or maybe right into the 2 weeks of free coaching or a full diag or a discovery call, which almost never worked. The cost per lead was outrageously high. The click-through rate was very, very low. Even the leads that we did receive almost always were heavily unqualified. Now, you could sit there and say, Tanner, well, maybe that has to do with the ad copy and who you were targeting. Absolutely, 100%. But the focus today is recognizing that we had the wrong front end piece for using paid ads. Same with networking. If we went to networking and all we did was focus on booking discovery calls, so essentially building relationships, booking discovery calls, and moving them into maybe a 2 weeks of free coaching or right into a diag, almost always it would work for a bit and then it would kind of peter out. And the reason for that is we kind of fished out the ponds for the hunting. We didn't do enough of the relationship building, the rapport building, the value add along the way to bring people into our world. When we made that shift, networking came back on the list of something that was effective within our business. Flyers, cold calls, all the same thing, because we didn't have the proper funnel in place to truly understand where these things fit in and how we could leverage them for the best possible way within the firm. So then came things like the Spotlight series and the podcast. And before I go super deep on any of these, I want to take a moment to really break down the difference between a lead channel and a conversion mechanism. So a lead channel is something like networking, referrals, paid ads, LinkedIn direct outreach, organic social content, strategic partners. All of these things are lead channels. They're ways that we get names, contact information, people that could do business from or with us from sources. That is a lead channel. A conversion mechanism is a thing that takes them from that lead channel and warms them up and moves them further down the funnel. So in our history of being a part of Action Coach, these are things like discovery calls, like seminars and workshops. In the case of the 2 weeks of free coaching, that is a really good conversion mechanism. We're moving them further down the funnel. The Spotlight podcast is a conversion mechanism. And you'll hear some people say, well, I get leads from Spotlight. I get leads from the podcast. And its reality is it's not. You have to take a step further back and realize that the vast majority of the leads are coming in from Spotlight. And this has been our case here in Central Texas. It's coming from LinkedIn direct messages. That is the lead channel that moves them into the podcast. The podcast then builds the rapport and has a conversion piece that is happening that moves them further down the funnel. So there is a difference between lead channel and conversion mechanisms. Why this is important is when we think about the podcast, and I've talked to so many franchise partners, other firms and practices that are running Spotlight. They're like, yeah, I just can't get enough leads coming through it, and they just don't convert, and they don't do this, and there's all these things that don't go the way that's planned. If we take a step back and say, okay, well, where are the leads coming from? Well, they're just coming from LinkedIn. Okay. Have you thought about using networking to fill the podcast? Have you thought about using strategic partners to fill the podcast? Well, Tanner, why would I do that? Well, the reason you would do that is when you go to networking and you talk to 20 people and maybe get 10 business cards and maybe set 3 one-to-ones and maybe get one of those people to move into a discovery call. If you talk to those same 10 people and said, hey, I'm running this podcast that spotlights different business owners within our local network. Would you be interested in being a guest on the show? You're likely going to get at least 50% of them to go, yeah, that sounds fun. Sign me up. Now all of a sudden you have 10 one-to-ones, if not more. One-to-one, true rapport building, deep dive conversations when you would have had 3 by going the old traditional route. So all of a sudden the front end offer, the podcast, becomes a much easier ask from networking. Now you can do the same thing with strategic partners. You can do it from referrals. Now don't get me wrong, the warmer the lead channel, so referrals traditionally are very warm leads. They're people who already have credibility and trust and things like that because they're being referred by somebody who's already getting results from you. Those likely fit into a different type of conversion mechanism. Can you put them into the podcast? 100%. But you don't need to. You can move them into a workshop where you can go right into a discovery call or the free coaching. Strategic partners, maybe a little bit different. And that's what I want to kind of showcase here in this next piece. When we think of cold versus hot, right? You've got conversion mechanisms there on the right-hand side. You've got lead channels on the left-hand side. Cold leads are traditionally going to come from paid ads. They're going to come from LinkedIn direct outreach. If you're doing direct outreach to 1,000 people every single month, the likelihood of them really knowing who you are and the types of value that you and the business provide is pretty low. They're still relatively cold, which means they're entering at a different point in the funnel. Because of this, we have to take more time to warm them up. This is why the podcast is a great front-end offer. Because if you came to those and said, hey, I want you to enroll into coaching, the likelihood is like, I don't know who you are. I don't know that I am even willing to admit that I have a problem. Like, why in the world would I pay for coaching? But if you offer them the opportunity to showcase their business and it allows us to build deeper conversation, now we can move them into the podcast, warm them up by potentially moving them into a workshop, and then offering free coaching and give them tons of value. Networking can sit anywhere from kind of colder leads down into some warmer opportunities, depending on how many times these people have seen you at networking events. Strategic partners, similar, could be a lot colder, could be warmer, but you've got that relationship capital built in with the partner who's referring. And then same thing with like referrals. Those tend to be a lot more relationship capital, so they're going to come in warmer. When we think of the right-hand side, the conversion mechanism side, podcast is going to be up there with traditionally higher up in the funnel, colder side of the lead warmth. Workshops can be a little bit warmer. Free coaching is a little bit further down. And then, of course, getting into hot leads where they actually convert into clients and ultimately revenue for the business. So the focus here is, where do people enter the funnel? What lead channel are they coming from, and which conversion mechanism is the most appropriate for them at this time? They can move up, they can move down, but the point is, depending on their warmth, the value that they've seen, we want to move them into the things that make the most sense. So as an example, we have a conversation with somebody, they say yes to a discovery call. They say yes to the 2 weeks of free coaching. Fantastic. So we move them into the 2 weeks of free coaching. We start with that first meeting and we're kind of walking through this, but we realize maybe after the second meeting, the site visit, they just aren't quite there. You know, you're feeling that they're just not feeling as much value. There's something that's still missing. Inviting them to the next upcoming workshop and having them see someone on your team or yourself on stage just delivering in a insane amount of value for 60 minutes or 90 minutes and then keep them moving through the 2 weeks of free coaching, like the conversion rate on that is significantly higher because now they've sat through and they go, I get it. I understand the value that you're providing. Okay. Perhaps maybe it's they did attend a workshop, but they're not quite sold on sitting down for a one-to-one on a free coaching session or something else like that. Well, maybe they just need to backtrack into the podcast first. Let's build that rapport. They've seen some value. Now let's build some rapport. Let's get to know their business a little bit deeper, which is essentially just some discovery that's happening. And then we'll offer them the 2 weeks of free coaching. The likelihood of them saying yes to that is much greater. So depending on where these leads come in, we're going to want to use the conversion mechanism or mechanisms, plural, to be able to warm them up and move them further down the funnel. So feeding the funnel, this is the key component here. So we've got things like networking, partnerships, and referrals. And please know I use these specific channels because they tend to be the most effective ones globally within Action Coach. Eventually build out your 10 by 10 and have 10 different channels, but start with the ones that we know work consistently and where they fit within the funnel. The real truth or the common truth is that not enough people know who you are or have ever received value from you. Yes, we want more people to be qualified so that we're not wasting our time sitting down with people who are not qualified or, booking up our calendar with people that are never going to buy. However, most of the time the challenge is we just don't have enough people in the top of the funnel to be able to say who's qualified and who's not. We need to invite people into our world and get them ingrained with the value that we can provide so that we have the selection to choose the people we want to move further down the funnel. So we need that strong top of funnel, or TOF as you can see on the screen here, in order to effectively filter the mid funnel with qualified leads. If I only talk to 10 people in a week, I have to make sure that I'm talking to 10 super qualified people because otherwise I just don't have enough to get further downstream. If I talk to 100 people per week and I get them all in at the very top of my funnel and I can have them kind of self-identify and find ways to provide value and they're seeing things from me, I can take the top 10% of those and move them further down the funnel. Those are the ones I'm going to invite to workshops. Those are the ones I'm going to invite into the 2 weeks of free coaching. And everybody else, let's give them free value with free content, with newsletters, with the Spotlight or podcast. Because when they see value, even if they're not qualified today for something that you offer, they may know somebody who does. And if they've gotten an incredible experience from you, the likelihood of them going out and telling somebody else about it, saying, hey, you've got to go jump on this podcast, you've got to come to one of their seminars or workshops, that compounds over time. So at the top of our funnel, we've got things like free content, newsletters, things like that. And there's a tremendous amount of things that you can give away for free inside of the Action Coach system. Simply talk about these stories and give away some of the things based on what they say their pain points are. Spotlight and Podcast allows you to go deeper to find out what are their specific pain points. Is it time? Is it money and profitability? Is it team issues? Is it recruiting? Is it hiring? Is it retaining the team? Is it, I've got my team, but I don't know how to manage them. But getting into those conversations so that you can fill your CRM, fill your marketing systems with real data that tells us what are the top challenges. If I'm going to run a workshop, I would much rather run a workshop on the pain point that I know that 50% of our leads have said that they have a problem with versus guessing and saying, well, I'm just going to run a 6 steps. Great. But what if 50% of the people that you've talked to in the past told you or told your team that they have an issue with time? Well, now it makes more sense to run a time workshop specifically on their pain point, invite all of them to come to it. They're going to see more value. They're going to tell more people about it. And the likelihood of them taking the offer at the end is much higher. So then that moves us down into 2 weeks free coaching. And then we have things like 12-week programs, coaching enrollment. I know that most of you listening to this and watching this will likely want more coaching enrollments because that is the bread and butter. That's the thing that is the best. Not everybody's going to be a fit for that today. One of the best ways is you can think about this from a paid programming. 12-week programs can feed your coaching enrollment. Think about things before 12-week programs. Maybe it's membership. Maybe it's Profit Club. Profit Club was a big one for the last 14 years that we've been a part of the Action system. And Profit Club wasn't about all of the revenue that you could generate from it. It was about putting 100 people into Profit Club to find the 10% of them that were going to upgrade into coaching enrollment. You got them in the door, providing them value with something that was low on the product ladder that allowed you to continue to provide value over time. So this works from a free standpoint and it works from a paid standpoint. The podcast, bringing it all the way back to this, the podcast, the spotlight piece is simply the entry point, the point where we can bring more people in with tremendous amounts of information. So let's talk about the value bridge. This is really the skill layer. So when I think of front-end offers or lead magnets, really, really good lead magnets have a couple things that they do well. Good lead magnets capture data, and oftentimes that's things like name, email, phone number, business, maybe some background information if we do something like a quiz or a questionnaire or something else like that. A great lead magnet traditionally provides value of some sort. So you think of ebooks and different things like that, really, really easy front-end offers. You're providing value to a problem that they have. Really great lead magnets traditionally will also identify and or solve, or both, problems that the prospect has. So ideally, it's a quiz or something that helps them identify that they have more things in the business that they want or will need to work on. Or it solves a micro problem, saying solve this one little thing in your hiring process, which likely exposes the fact that they have even more than that one little problem, right? So great lead magnets traditionally will do a number of these things. Phenomenal lead magnets do all of them. This is exactly why I love the podcast or the Spotlight series, because it provides value on the front end, right? We talked about that earlier. It solves a specific problem, which is traditionally marketing related. I am looking to get my business out there more. That is a micro problem that the business has, and we are solving it for them with the podcast. It is gathering data. And not just data in the sense of name, email, phone number, but now we're getting depth. We're finding out exactly who the decision makers are. We're finding out exactly what the pain points are, the struggles that they've had. All of these things culminating together while also doubling with value and rapport and credibility and all of this stuff that allows us to mix it together and make an offer at the end that makes them go, wow, you really listened to me. And of course, I would love to see what it looks like to have the next conversation. So when we think about the value bridge of performing the podcast, so when I talk to my team and we're going through this process, we first have to understand where are they now versus where do they want to be, right? So at the very beginning of this process, we have connecting, we have discovering, reflecting back on things, and inviting them to the next level. So this is paying attention to how warm is this lead. If they're coming in from LinkedIn, they may not know where they are versus where they want to be. They have no idea who you are or we are. They have no idea how we can help them. But that's not the point. Right now, what we're doing as a team is determining where are they in this journey. Where do they need to enter, or where are they entering the funnel so that we can build some connection first. Build that rapport, ensure that we have the right tone set, that sort of thing. And then as we go through conversation, we're going to start creating discovery. We're going to start understanding where they are today. What are the gaps that they have? What are the things that they're articulating to us are pain points or frustrations or frictions or things that they're growing through, right? It's not always that they've got a pain point. Sometimes it's just, I'm growing through this thing right now and it's hard, right? It's not always just the things that they say, but it's how they say them. I mean, you can tell on their facial expressions and everything else that there's something that we just touched a nerve on, right? This is the discovery level. This is asking the questions. Then we reflect back and continue to help them reiterate the different things that they've said so that we have something very concrete to make an invite to the next step. This is the only time, the only way that we can make a call to action is if we know enough about them that they feel that we understand their needs. Only at that moment can we invite them to take the next step with us. And this is creating the value bridge. So when we break down a call, right? So if I'm going to work with my team and we're going to review one of their podcast conversations, we're going to primarily look at this 6 different areas that I've got on the screen. Rapport and tone. How did we establish rapport from the beginning? What was the tone that we set? How did we kind of pre-position some things? What's the framing, right? What's the reason that we're here? What are the things that we're solving for them? What are the things that they're going to take away from this? How do we help them become so comfortable with what's about to come in the conversation for the podcast that they trust us implicitly? Then it's discovery. How good were we at getting into depth? Did we ask deeper questions? Did we do the things that we need to be doing? What questions or what things in that what answers did they give in the podcast that we should have gone deeper on, that really opened the door to something that we needed to dig into a little bit more? And then creating that value bridge, right? Understanding, again, from that discovery, from that information, where are they today and how do we bridge the gap? How long is that bridge? For some people, it's a very, very long bridge. For others, it's a super short bridge, right? Sometimes you'll have a conversation like that and like, you know what? I was actually looking for a coach. I've had a coach in the past. I don't have one now. I had a great experience, right? That's a pretty short bridge. Where they are now is already more established into what coaching could be. We want to get them over here. That's a pretty short bridge. Others, no idea who you are, wasn't even willing to articulate they had a problem, and we've got a much longer bridge to bring them across. And this is where the discovery and the framing and everything comes together. And we talk about the call to action, which I just went through in the invite stage. How strong was our call to action? If you're making a call to action saying, hey, you should meet with a coach, or you should meet with me because I'm a coach. Cool. Why? What things did you articulate in the actual podcast that warrants me making an offer, right? So we have to be able to tie that back to say, Mr. Guest, I heard that you said X, Y, and Z, and that's holding you back from achieving this goal over here. Did I capture that correctly? Well, yeah, Tanner, actually, that's one thing I'm growing through right now. Oh, that's fantastic. Would it be a terrible idea to actually sit down with a coach here and work on those specific things so you can get to that goal a little bit faster? All of a sudden, we've articulated the things that they've told us to allow them to see a solution that they want solved. Okay. And then clarity. What does this next step entail? What does it look like? You want them to actually show up to the next step. We have to have a ton of clarity there. So whenever you're looking at how do I create or how do I craft the best conversation that I possibly can when it comes to the podcast or a spotlight series, these 6 pillars are the core areas that we look at to really create this value bridge and a great rapport building conversation. So what does the spotlight system look like? For some of you, you've done this in the past. For some of you, this is brand new. So I'm going to give kind of the overall context of what this looks like. And there's different ways to go about this, right? For our business, we've been working with Avalanche and their team for almost 4 years now. They do all of the front end of this for us. It's one of those things that we're continuing to use. We've perfected the middle, and then we've got the sales component here at the end. So on the front end of this thing, the spotlight system, the engine starts with sourcing leads. So what Avalanche is doing for us is they are sourcing leads primarily using LinkedIn. That is the core channel that we're using for this conversion mechanism today. So they go in, they create lists, clean them up by hand, and then they do direct outreach. They make connections with these individuals on LinkedIn, and they send multiple messages. So this is the key. If you're going to go run this type of a strategy, and you're going to do direct outreach, one message traditionally will not cut it. You've got to send multiple messages. Follow up 3, 4, 5 times, because I don't know when the last time was that you open up your LinkedIn messages, but if I open up mine, I almost always have 10, 15, 20 unread messages, and I miss a lot of them, unless they continue to pop up over and over and over again. So just recognize that sometimes people aren't blowing you off. They just simply didn't see the message. So we've got to send multiple messages. And even when we get a response, we may have to send multiple follow-ups to answer the questions that they have before they say, yeah, that actually sounds like a good idea. I'd love to be on the podcast. So sourcing leads is a good component of this. LinkedIn's just one strategy. That's the version we use. I've talked to many other coaches out there that are running this system who are using networking, who are using strategic partners, who are using client referrals to invite people into the podcast. So sourcing leads can be multiple different ways. For us, it has primarily been LinkedIn. We invite them using simple messages, simple languaging of here's the value I want to provide to you. Can I provide value to you? Would you like to come on as a guest? Can I give you some content? Can I promote your business? Can I do these types of things for you for free? Yeah, that sounds great. Go through this process. We then interview them. The interview is depth. It's all the things that we talked about in the previous slides. So then we can move them into the next step. So we make a call to action. That call to action primarily has been a discovery call that leads into 2 weeks of free coaching. If that's not the right fit for them, we can downsell to another piece into the funnel, which is what's step above that. Well, maybe it's a workshop or a seminar. Hey, by the way, Mr. Guest, I've got a workshop coming up on time management. You had just mentioned this in the thing. Would you like a ticket? Right? It's an easier sell. Perhaps they don't want anything to do with anything right now, but they'd love to get some value from you in your weekly newsletter. Maybe it's additional emails. Maybe it's just a general follow-up with some tags in your CRM that says, hey, their pain point was time. I should send them some things on time studies. Maybe I should record a video on how to do a time study and send it to them so that they've got some value from us. This is the nurture level of things. But we only know that because we went through the interview and got depth of discovery. That's why this system works. Nurture is a lot of different things, but we want to focus on what's the value we can provide to them. Most of the time, so right now, as of recording of this, which is just the start of November of 2025, the average conversion from completed interview to booking the discovery call is about 65%. It's actually trended up a little bit in the last month or so. I traditionally will say 50% or better is good, right? If you can get 50% of the people that go through an interview to book into a discovery call, that's pretty dang solid. Anything that's in that 60 to 70% is probably optimal. If you start getting up into 80s, 90s, likely what's happening is either you don't have enough volume or they're saying you've got people that are saying yes to get you off the phone. So looking at kind of the metrics there, that has been true for us. And as you can see here on the screen, in just this year, and when I put this thing together as of about a month and a half ago, we had already done 185 interviews this year in 2025. That number is north of 200 as of recording today. But we have completed well over 500 interviews in this entire system. So I share larger numbers with you to give you context of we're not looking at small sample sizes. We're looking at very, very, very large sample sizes. Discovery call then leads into the 2 weeks of free coaching. And how we traditionally will position it is when they sit for the discovery call, we will position at that moment, at the beginning of the call, that we are their coach for the next 2 weeks. So now they have to opt out of gaining additional value. And we just let them know that we've already set aside the resources for them. We're going to be their coach for the next 2 weeks. Here's what that looks like, and here's why. And then we get into the rest of the discovery call. Making that slight little change of pulling that offer to the beginning of that discovery call for the 2 weeks of free coaching shifted us from getting in, I think it was September, we did about 30-40% conversion rate from discovery call into the 2 weeks of free coaching, which was a lot lower than what we had traditionally seen in the past. And we shifted that in October, and now in the start of November, 87% conversion rate from discovery call into the 2 weeks of free coaching. And the value people see by going through those 4 meetings is insane. The likelihood of them saying, I want to buy something from you, doesn't mean they're always going to buy coaching, but wanting to buy something from you. Maybe it's just coming to your next growth club. That is incredibly high because of the value that they've seen by going through this process. Number of touch points is the key here. So this is the Spotlight system. This is the engine. And I will share with many of you, if you're watching this later on, you may have recognized that Andy and myself and Jody were not at BizX this year. We were not at Coach Conference to share this information. And the reason for that was that my grandmother had passed away, and we were out of the business for a number of days. And this was Jody's mom, so she was out of the business for roughly 3 weeks in October. And there was a lot of things that stopped as a result of it, right? There wasn't a ton of networking that was going on. There wasn't a lot of strategic partners, because that's kind of been the thing that she's been focused on. Like, things stopped in our business because of, well, frankly, life hit, and it hit hard. But you know what didn't stop? This engine, the Spotlight system. We still booked 20 new interviews from this. We still booked 15 discovery calls. We still sat discovery calls as a result of having this engine in place. When you set this up effectively, it can make a massive difference in getting consistent leads in your business, regardless of what happens. So I want you to really think about measuring the right things. Short-term sales versus system success, right? Don't think of this as just, I need to go get a single transaction, and having sporadic wins and just being emotionally reactive. Don't look at this as something that you have to do all of the work. Yes, that may be the direction that you take in the beginning, because in the beginning we have more time than we do money. As we continue to grow the business, we should start to have more money than we do time, and we invest that financial resource into additional people that can run this. And the key thing with this system is that me, Tanner, doesn't do any of the interviews anymore. I don't do a single interview. I don't do any of the discovery calls. I don't do any of the sales process. All of it is handled by the team, which means every aspect of this engine is teachable. And that system success allows us to have consistent pipeline flow, predictable weekly activity, and everything is data-driven. We can delegate it. It's run by the team. So, a key point that I want to highlight here before I move into kind of the wrap-up of this conversation is that if the channel reliably fills your calendar with qualified conversations, then it's working. Just because you don't get a sale from it right away, just because those things don't happen right away, doesn't mean that it's not working. When you can predictively put people into your calendar, into your database that want to gain value from you, whether they're qualified to buy from you today or not, the downstream results of that long term, as you build a business that's longer than a year, those results compound over time. So I encourage us to reverse engineer the math, and I'm going to show a bit of a slide here at the very end. This is a good moment to kind of pause and maybe take a picture of this so that you can come back and kind of write some of these things down in your own notes on how to reverse engineer the math for your specific channel. The big question is, the channel does work. Do you work? If you're not seeing results from this, I encourage you to come back to the pillars: rapport and tone, positioning, discovery, value bridge, call to action, clarity. Are we getting enough meat? How good is our skill set in getting through to discovery and providing value to people? Do we give enough of that value away for free? If the channel delivers conversations but not conversions, it's traditionally a skills gap, not necessarily a system failure. So if Spotlight's not working for you, you could probably say the same thing about workshops or seminars or 2 weeks of free coaching or any other mechanism that's in the marketing and sales funnel. The likelihood is that there is a skill gap that needs to be tweaked. As I mentioned before, we went from, whether it was September, October, August, September, whatever the actual time frame was, I'm forgetting in the moment of this conversation. But that month where we made the change in the discovery call, going from 40% conversion from discovery call to 2 weeks of free coaching to 87% conversion rate, that was a skill gap. There was a little tweak that we needed to make that completely transitioned this. And anytime that you're working a specific lead conversion mechanism or a lead channel over long enough period of time, things will change. Your prospects will change. You'll go to colder and colder audiences. Demands in the marketplace will be different, and you have to make adjustments. Back when I started the Spotlight series, I was really good at doing the interview, booking them directly into a diag, taking them through the traditional 13-step process and getting them to enroll. That process doesn't work directly anymore. Now, more value is needed. More touch points are needed. The world has shifted. Education is virtually free. They have PhDs in their pocket with AI tools. Being able to elongate this process, build more rapport over time, go through these types of things, it's all a skill that can be learned. So I encourage you not to throw anything out because you heard that this works or it doesn't work, or people have good experience or bad experience. I want you to think about how many conversations, deep, good, quality conversations am I having every single week? And could my business benefit from having more qualified conversations? If the answer is yes, then we can work on the skills to get you the results that you want downstream. So the hidden cost of free. This is kind of the next big piece, because when you run this type of a system, when you run the Spotlight specifically, it is a bit time intensive. You've got to source the leads. You've got to sit down and do the interviews and things like that. And if you're a single coach doing this for your business, you're doing all of it. And eventually you'll run into the point where like, I don't have time to do the interviews. I actually like doing them, but I don't have time to do them all anymore because I actually am taking sales meetings and I have clients that I'm enrolling and coaching and different things like that. There is a way to start shifting into having systems and people that can do this on your behalf. But I encourage you to really put the hat on of what is the cost of my time doing everything? Because that free week of you doing networking still cost you money, real money, in lost productivity, in the fact that you could pay somebody else to go do that thing so that you can do something else. Just because you're not paying somebody else for it today doesn't mean there's not a cost. And I know many of you in Action Coach understand this concept. You teach it to a lot of your clients. So I just encourage you to put that hat on when you're thinking about these things, because this channel plus this conversion mechanism can get tedious over time when you start to do volume. And this thing really works when you do volume. As you grow through it, you will hit bottlenecks. You'll run into places where you'll need to start building the systems and the people to start to build this out for you. This is where we get into recruiting, training, reviewing, coaching, and automating. Okay? When we build this, we start by finding the right people that are aligned with your values. We teach them this conversation model. We train them in this. I have 3 people on my team today that are trained in doing just the podcast piece and effectively handing it over. I have a team member today that's his only focus is the 2 weeks of free coaching. And we're seeing results from this. These things can be trained. And this whole system that we've created allows us to see these things happen, right? So I encourage you to just understand that as you figure out how to do them. Like the only reason I have a system that it works is because I had to go do 200 interviews before I could hire my first team member to take that on. And then I could effectively train somebody to do what I did. And then we move on to the next step and the next step. But a big key component is when you bring other people on, you have to still do the management work. You have to do the review. Listen to the calls, help teach skill, help them refine their systems. Because if you've done 50, 100, 200 different interviews and the team member has only done 2, 3, 5, 10 of them, your skill set is going to be so far leaps and bounds ahead that you've got to transfer that knowledge. And the best way to do this is do actual reviews with them. Feedback, support, live call reviews, listen to them while they're on a call and give them the support. Here's where you could have changed these things. Here's some things that I heard. This is a question that I heard you ask. They gave this answer and you went on to the next question versus asking this 1 or 2 deeper dive questions. Here's how we can start looking for that in the future. Review and coach. And then you back it up with the systems to reduce the human input and make it easier for the team to function on a daily basis. Every role is a collection of skills, behaviors, and all of it can be taught, even though you're a very skilled individual and you know you can do it really well. I guarantee you, team members who their sole focus is one component of this can be very, very effective. So we'll wrap out with a little bit on reverse engineering the math. I wanted to throw this in here so you can kind of start thinking about what this could look like for you and your specific business. And this ties directly back to what Andy and I taught at BizX North American Conference back in 2024, so last year. And we've turned into our bottoms up business planning. So if you haven't seen that video, go ahead and click the link and check that video out. But it really looks at, if I want to accomplish a certain number of clients in the business, and I want to use this channel, which is the Spotlight, or the conversion mechanism that is Spotlight with LinkedIn or something like that as the core channel. What are the things that need to be true in order for us to achieve that goal? Ideally, we've been running something, or we can use historical numbers from like our large data set, that sort of thing, and say, what are the numbers that have been true in the past? And if we use those numbers, what numbers do I need to hit to achieve the goals that I want? So here on, as a quick example, I've got the target clients at 2 and a few different close ratios in there. So I have 13% total close rate, and how that's broken out is the discovery call to discovery call booked to discovery call sat number or conversion rate at 66%. I have discovery call sat to 2 weeks of free coaching enrollment at 60%. And as I said, we've actually seen closer to 87% at this point, but let's use some conservative numbers here. 2 weeks of free coaching to diag sat, meaning that they enrolled into the 2 weeks of free coaching. They went through all 4 steps and they actually sat the diag at the end at 66%. Now, again, I recognize that most of you will have probably much closer to 100% sit rate of diag from the 2 weeks free coaching. But again, let's be conservative with these numbers. And then enrollment rate at 50%. 50% of the people that sat a diag actually enrolled. Okay. So if we run that and we go backwards from 2, we're going to get to calls needed, or booked discovery calls need to be 15 per month. Okay, cool. So if we need to book 16 discovery calls, then we know that we need 28 booked podcast interviews. So we run that conversion rate. We know what that conversion rate is from booked podcast interview to booked discovery call. And we're able to see that we need 28 leads or booked podcasts per month, which means we need 7 per week on average from any source. So then the question is, can I go to enough networking events? Can I do enough LinkedIn outreach? Can I do enough strategic partner outreach to get 7 people to say yes to a podcast? If the answer to that is yes, and these results continue to hold for you, you got 2 clients. And your conversion rates may be better downstream. Your enrollment rate may be a little bit higher. Your diag sit rate might be a little bit higher. So I wanted to be conservative to show how simple this is if you reverse engineer backwards. Use historical actuals, not hope. Activity drives opportunity. The big key here is, are you even talking to enough people consistently? This is one of the biggest gaps that I see. If you want consistent leads, you got to talk to enough people. I know they're not all going to be qualified, but the only way to know if they're qualified is to have more conversations. So what's one improvement that you can make this month based on the things that we've talked about here? What's one thing that you can implement? What's one way that you can take the concept of what I've taught here today and implement that within your action business? That's going to be my challenge to you. You can use Spotlight. You can use this podcast series in general as a conversion mechanism, but if that's not your game, and you've got other lead channels and other conversion mechanisms you want to go all in or already all in on, how can you take something from today's presentation, from this video, that applies the same way to the things that you're doing in your business, and what's one thing that you can improve as a result of it? That is my challenge for you today. With that, we will end here. And for those of you that are like, Tanner, that's great, but what's next? What's the next thing that we can do? How can I get more involved within Spotlight? I have a partnership with Avalanche where our team has been providing some additional support to many other ActionCOACH Franchise Partners. On one end, we have what we call the Do-It-Yourself Challenge, where you as the franchise partner will still do your own lead sourcing, whether that's from LinkedIn, from networking, things like that. You'll do the podcast and everything else in between. Avalanche will take care of the actual video editing, and you will get all of our systems. So all of Avalanche's systems when it comes to how to do the LinkedIn outreach, how to set up Linked Helper, how to do all of those types of things, the scripting, et cetera, et cetera. And on my end, my team and I run a bi-weekly coaching support call that's roughly about an hour long. We jump on, we help you move through the things, and I teach and train you the same things I teach and train my team. You have access to every single piece of our system, every training video that my team goes through, recorded calls from the past, all of that. If that's something that's of interest to you, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the video description below. For those of you that are like, that's great, Tanner, I have no time. I need to move into something different and I don't even want to do the interviews. The team and I have what we call the Done For You Spotlight Series, where our team will take everything up through booking a discovery call. Our team will do the interviews. Our team will hand those leads off to you onto your calendar, and every lead that doesn't book into a discovery call. We will go through the process of nurturing them. We will go through the process of sourcing them alongside the Avalanche team. All of that stuff done for you. If that's something that you'd like to have a little bit more conversation on and what that can look like for you, reach out to me at the email below. With that, I sincerely hope that this has been something that has been valuable for all of you. We were sad to not be at conference, and look forward to seeing many of you in person, hopefully sometime here soon. The door's always open here in Central Texas. If you want to take a trip down, come spend some time with us, we would absolutely love it. It'd be a ton of fun. With that, thank you so much. Again, for those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Tanner OBrien. I'm one of the senior partners here in Central Texas, and wishing you absolutely all the best in your action journey.